The United Nations has again called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza after Israel announced plans to expand its military presence in the region. Israeli troops have already taken over a large part of Gaza, displacing the population and building watchtowers and surveillance posts on cleared ground. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the intensive military operation is necessary to defeat Hamas and secure the release of hostages. Eylon Levy is a former Israeli government spokesperson. I spoke to him earlier. When Prime Minister Netanyahu talks of the capture of Gaza, what do you think that will involve?
Israel's goals have remained the same since Hamas declared war on October 7th, 2023 with the October 7th massacre: to remove Hamas from power, to destroy its military, and to bring back all the hostages. And Israel is now changing tactics, saying, we can't keep playing this game of cat and mouse where Israel goes into territory, fights Hamas, withdraws, Hamas takes back over. If you want to remove Hamas from power, you have to defeat it in a certain area and then hold that territory. And Israel is saying, we're going to hold that territory until Hamas is finally removed from power and until the hostages are returned home.
How will Israel know when Hamas has been finally defeated?
Well, Hamas will be finally defeated when it's no longer in power in Gaza, because Hamas is the government of Gaza. It's in power and it's able to hijack humanitarian aid. It's able to sell it onto the black market. It's able to impose a curfew. It has guns and with it should execute dissidents. So once Hamas is defeated, once it surrenders or the bulk of its fighters are killed, then it will be possible to put in place an alternative civilian government. And Israel has said in the past that it would like to see Palestinians in Gaza who don't support terrorism take responsibility for the Strip, together with regional Arab states that have a very important role to play in what has to happen after the war, which is, first of all, peaceful reconstruction without any Hamas military infrastructure, but more importantly, de-radicalization as well. Because we have to ensure that the same jihadi ideology that motivated the barbaric atrocities of October 7th is also defeated. And then it will be possible to turn a new page and put this war behind us.
Is there a concern, though, that even if Hamas is removed from power, the ideology and some fighters and some resources will remain?
Absolutely. When the October 7th massacre happened, it was overwhelmingly popular inside the Gaza Strip. For over a year, polls showed that most Gazans supported the October 7th massacre. That's the product of decades of indoctrination. So Netanyahu said early in the war that there are three prerequisites for peace, the three Ds. You have to destroy Hamas. There can't be peace as long as Gaza is controlled by that jihadi regime. You have to demilitarize Gaza. The Strip cannot retain an ability to invade Israel or fire missiles at our cities. And you have to demilitarize the Gaza, you have to de-radicalize the Gaza Strip, just like the Second World War ended. But the Nazis are not in power anymore because Germany was denazified and there was a re-education program. This war has to end with people blaming Hamas for bringing this disaster on them. And the positive news is we're already seeing protests inside the Gaza Strip by brave people risking execution at the hands of the Hamas regime, who are saying Hamas brought this disaster on us. Hamas has to surrender, lay down its arms, free the hostages, and all this can be over.
How long do you think Israeli troops will need to remain in Gaza?
Israel is looking at maintaining indefinite security control in the Gaza Strip. Let's remember, Israel withdrew in 2005. It pulled out the army, it pulled out 9,000 Israelis who lived there, gave it to the Palestinians, in the hope that this experiment would prove that we would have stability. But instead, Gaza was taken over by Hamas in a violent military coup in 2007. And they built up a monstrous terrorist army that fired rockets at our cities and on October 7th invaded and slaughtered 1,200 people in a single day. So Israel is now saying we have to make sure that no alternative terrorist army is able to arise in Gaza. And that means the Israeli army will need to maintain overarching security control in the Gaza Strip for the foreseeable future.
Let's take a look at some of the international and domestic reaction to some of the plans that have been announced by Benjamin Netanyahu. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has raised significant concerns about the humanitarian system in Gaza and shutting down the existing aid system, and there are great worries about potential starvation and people going hungry currently in Gaza. How can Israel guarantee the safety and the well-being of Gazans given the months and months of suffering that have already taken place?
It's important that aid reach people who need it and that Hamas can't steal it. But that's not what is happening now. Hamas is hijacking humanitarian aid, selling it on the black market, and that is Hamas's main financial pipeline. Most of Hamas's income now comes from hijacking humanitarian aid. So the food that is meant to go to people for free is getting sold, lining Hamas's pockets and helping them pay their fighters. The humanitarian aid has extended this war because it has been allowing Hamas to pay its soldiers. Now, since Israel decided to stop letting supplies into Gaza, Hamas is in a serious cash crunch problem.
And people are also hungry.
Because it can't pay its fighters anymore. And so that's why Israel has proposed a creative solution to get aid directly to the people who need it by using private contractors in special designated humanitarian zones instead of the current system in which Hamas is hijacking the aid and it is financing its own war machine. And I think it is unconscionable. I think it is unconscionable that UN officials are insisting on an aid distribution mechanism that is allowing Hamas to steal aid and finance its war machine. They should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, and they should be working with Israel to make sure that civilians get aid and that Hamas cannot steal it.
With all the surveillance that Israel has on Gaza, all the technology and other sources as well, where's the evidence that Hamas has been stealing the aid?
Just look, all the food is being sold in the markets. This is humanitarian aid. It's meant to be distributed for free, but it's getting sold. I mean, just look, recently, a few weeks ago, the Wall Street Journal published a report that Hamas was running low on cash and is delaying salaries for its fighters because it's not able to control the supply of humanitarian aid anymore. Hamas isn't a small terrorist group. It's the government of Gaza. It's the regime that's in control of Gaza. And that is why it has been intercepting humanitarian supplies.
But where's the evidence of this aid being intercepted? With Israel's eyes on Gaza, we've not seen any evidence or video of this taking place.
First of all, that's not true. And I can refer you to footage showing Hamas gunmen sitting on top of aid trucks. That has been broadcast on international media. But more than that, just look at the fact that the international aid that is donated, that is supposed to be distributed for free, is being sold in the markets at Gaza. The people who are intercepting it and making a profit of it are the Hamas regime inside Gaza. That's how the Wall Street Journal reported a few weeks ago that Hamas was able to finance most of its military operations. And while Israel is trying to cut off Hamas's funding, it is completely unconscionable that aid agencies are insisting on a mechanism that is allowing Hamas to prolong this war and finance its military machine.
Is it equally unconscionable to not be letting any aid in at all at the moment, given the large number, particularly of women and children in Gaza?
I hear that concern. Israel made the very dramatic decision to stop letting supplies into Gaza after a 6-week ceasefire in which 450,000 tons of aid entered Gaza. During the ransom for the last hostages, over 25,000 trucks of food entered Gaza. That's a third of all the aid that entered in the course of the entire war. So Israel is monitoring the humanitarian situation and knows that there is enough food in Gaza to last for months. If there are shortages, it's because the food hasn't reached the people who need it, because their government has intercepted it to divert it to their own military forces and steal it for a profit.
The domestic situation in Israel currently, the Hostages and Missing Families Forum has been critical of these plans put forward by the Israeli Prime Minister, saying that the government is choosing territories over hostages. How do you see the balance between those two priorities?
The Hostage Families Forum are absolutely right to be terrified for the fate of the hostages now. There is a very real risk that Hamas will execute the hostages like it's executed hostages before, because that is the barbaric enemy we're dealing with. Hamas is holding not only 24 live hostages, but also the bodies of 35 hostages it has murdered. Now, what's the problem? Hamas is demanding a ransom in order to free the hostages. And the ransom that it is demanding is the release of thousands of convicted terrorists from jails. And International Security Council guarantees that Hamas remains in power. And we know that if that happens and Hamas is given thousands of convicted terrorists and is allowed to remain in power to plot the next October 7th massacre, then the next war is only a matter of time. The deal that Hamas is offering Israel is, we'll give you the hostages of today in exchange for more hostage-taking in future. And this Israeli government has decided that that ransom is too high.